Right, a very good morning to you. How you doing? It's Sunday morning, October the 13th, 2019. Hope you're well this Sunday. It's a bit grey, a bit miserable in Salford and Greater Manchester. It's raining again. It rains quite a bit here. My name is Richie Allen. I hope you're well. As I've just said, I'm going to be looking through the Sunday newspapers, the front pages, the stories inside, and we'll drop in on some of the UK's morning talk programmes as well. Thanks for joining me. Do join in on Twitter. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. If there's something you'd like to contribute to the programme, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Let's do it then, Sunday View.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
And I know the voice is a little bit husky. I did quite a bit of shouting yesterday, don't you know? Quite a bit of shouting, so I did. But anyway,
it's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yeah, I did quite a lot of shouting yesterday. I'll talk about that briefly in a minute. Welcome to Sunday View. Lots going on today. Lot to talk about. A lot of human interest stories inside the newspapers. A lot of really interesting things to discuss. Besides Brexit, there will be a bit of Brexit. We're about 18 days away from the so-called October 31st deadline, when the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that we will leave the European Union come what may. It's not going to happen, and we'll delve into that now in a second, but not too much of it, alright? Yeah, we've all got Brexit lash or Brexit fatigue, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Look, had a fantastic day yesterday well, first of all, at Media City in Salford. Very interesting place, Media City, which some of you will know, some of you won't know, but it houses many of the UK's big news hubs. Like Sky has got studios there, the BBC has got studios there, ITV has got studios there as well. Very interesting, right? It's almost like decentralisation from London. A lot of the media is now based in Salford. And what's very interesting, for those of my listeners who like to observe occult symbolism, well, you've really got to get up to Media City in Salford to look at the occult symbology, because it's all there. Pyramids, pentagrams, it's all there. You know, you've been reading for many years people like Jordan Maxwell, of course, Zechariah Sitchin, of course, David Icke laterally, of course, and those men, amongst other men, of course, and women, have concerned themselves with studying symbolism. You've got to see, I mean, I've been through Media City a few times, but yesterday, while chatting away with the boys that I was with on the way to the game, you couldn't help but notice it. And I suppose you don't have to go there. If you want to go online later on and look for some photographs of Media City, it's all there, the symbolism. Anyway, I had one of the best days out I've ever had in my life yesterday. And I'm pretty sure that if Salford had managed to beat St Helens in the Super League, Rugby League, the grand final, I don't think I'd be here now. I think I'd still be in town. I'm pretty sure I would be. I've never experienced anything like it. What an occasion. The mighty Salford fell to the even mightier St Helens 23-6 yesterday. Congratulations to St Helens and their supporters. Brilliant stuff. Salford just fell a little bit short. It was really experience, I think. They started a little bit hesitantly, did Salford, not accustomed to playing these big games. And by the time they kind of got going, they were a couple of tries down. But that's to take nothing away from St Helens, who are an amazing rugby league outfit. Great day with my great friend Tez and Darren and Dean and Dean's brother Rich and Danny and everybody else. The crack was mighty. Fantastic. I ended up last night, would you believe, in Weast Social Club playing bingo, pissed as a fart. And I might have to go back to the social club later on to make my apologies, because I'm pretty sure I ruined the bingo for everybody. I was as pissed as a fart, to be honest, by the time we got to Weast Social Club. And I think you're supposed to be a bit respectful and to be a bit quiet when people are playing bingo. But I wasn't. And if I offended anybody, I do wholeheartedly apologise. I want to play this. I'm going to go into the papers in a minute, but I'm going to do something very unusual. I'm going to play a bit of music before we go into the papers. I love Salford. What a place. What a city. What a day it was yesterday. Here's the Pogues singing Ewan McColl's Dirty Old Town. This is Sunday View with me, Richie Allen. We're going straight into the papers and into the mid-morning talk shows after this. Salford, viva Salford, Salford forever. I love you. Yeah, I think we definitely ruined the bingo. I do remember playing a game with a card but not being able to see the numbers. And that woman just would not slow down calling out those numbers. Anyway, let's get into the papers. Enough of that old nonsense. The Sunday Times leads with, "Sign this deal or let us go now," Boris tells the European Union. Johnson is writing in the Times today, I do believe. I've read every other paper. I've not read inside the Times. But he's alleging again, or claiming again, that the European Union is now, the ball is in the European Union's court. We have made our proposals, agree to it, or just let us leave, Johnson is allegedly saying to the European Union. The Observer leads with, "Support grows for new Brexit poll amid fears over PM's plan." The front page of the Observer saying that pro-Remain MPs are convinced that they have enough support now to get a second referendum on European Union membership. Not a referendum on any deal, but an actual in-out referendum, basically rerunning the 2016 referendum question. Also, the paper, the Observer, goes with the story about Johnson's chances depending on support of the DUP MPs in Westminster. And the Observer says today that there is increasing doubt that the Democratic Unionist Party will support the details of Boris Johnson's plan. That's in the Observer. The Sunday Telegraph goes with, "Rees-Mogg, PM won't concede much to European Union." Now this is very interesting because Jacob Rees-Mogg is the leader of the House of Commons. It's a front bench position. He was appointed to that position by Boris Johnson. And Mogg is writing in the Sunday Telegraph today, appealing to Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party to back Johnson. And Mogg is saying compromise will inevitably be needed. Now, this is very interesting, right? Because Jacob Rees-Mogg was a staunch refuser, if we can use that terminology. He refused to back Theresa May's deal because of the compromises that May was making to the European Union. Now, by all accounts, Johnson is going to offer the very same consequences to the European Union, and now Jacob Rees-Mogg appears to have done a 180 turn, and he's saying to the Eurosceptics on the backbenches, we need to compromise, we need to support the Prime Minister. We'll hear from Mogg in a second. The Mail on Sunday goes with, "Enter the Tory Brexit wreckers." Just when the nation dared hope our interminable nightmare might end on October 31st, enter the Tory Brexit wreckers, says the Mail on Sunday. The Mail says the Tory rebels are plotting to sabotage Johnson's deal by forcing a delay to the leaving date, even if Johnson was to win support for his deal. And that's likely to be put to Parliament next Saturday, by the way. So next Saturday, if Johnson gets any deal with the European Union, it's due to go before the House this coming Saturday. The Sunday Express goes with Brexit 2. Boris, Britain to be greatest place on earth. So Boris says Britain to be greatest place on earth. This is flag-waving nonsense about the UK, a post-Brexit Britain being the greatest place on earth, blah, 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 blah. The Sunday Mirror, millions forced to wait a month to see a GP. This is interesting. The Sunday Mirror leads with an allegation that in 15 million cases in the last year alone, people have had to wait a month for an appointment with their general practitioner. They call it a scandal, an NHS scandal, and they call it a crisis. They say one doctor has warned the wheels are coming off. That's a quote, general practice, such as the wait. And again, there will be a lot of people listening to this programme, won't they? And they will point to membership of the European Union and Eastern Bloc countries joining the European Union, freedom of movement, putting pressure on vital public services. That's what they'll say. Let's go back to Jacob Rees-Mogg, by the way, in the Telegraph today, appealing to Leavers to back Boris Johnson's efforts to secure a deal, warning compromise will inevitably be needed. There is the stink of hypocrisy this morning, dear listener. As I just said a minute ago, Mogg was very much adamant when Theresa May was Prime Minister that those compromises could not be met. Shouldn't be met, because they would leave the UK as a vassal state of the European Union. But writing in the Sunday Telegraph today, Jacob Rees-Mogg says Boris can be trusted. He invokes an idiom that suggests that Johnson might have to make concessions, which would be unpopular with Brexiteers. The same concessions that Mogg was not prepared, I've got to keep repeating this, to make under Theresa May. Yes, because some Brexiteer MPs have been going on the radio this morning saying they are very concerned that Boris Johnson has in fact offered the European Union a compromise that would see Northern Ireland legally outside of the European Union's customs union, but remaining in a close arrangement with Brussels, which would in fact create a border down the Irish Sea. So is it true? Mogg was on with Sophie Ridge on Sky News earlier this morning. Is it true? Will Johnson betray the DUP? Will Northern Ireland remain very close to the European Union? This is what Mogg had to say on that point.
We'll have to wait and see what the precise details are. Naturally, in the middle of a negotiation, these matters are extremely sensitive because everybody is compromising to some degree, and therefore to give the negotiations the best chance of succeeding, it's best to be discreet about them. I can tell you that the Cabinet will be briefed at 12:45 this afternoon as to how far these negotiations have gone, and that's obviously an important part of the process because collective responsibility requires that, and we will see more details emerge over the next few days.
Yeah. So, compromises. We'll have to wait and see, says Jacob Rees-Mogg. To be fair to Sophie Ridge, she then asks him the correct question.
I can't help thinking that the plan sounds a little bit similar to the customs partnership put forward by Theresa May last year. Now, that
it's not similar. It is the same arrangement put forward by Theresa May.
That, of course, was a plan that you described at the time as completely cretinous, impractical, bureaucratic, and a betrayal of common sense. So have you changed your mind?
Well, I don't know whether you're right or wrong, so we'll have to find out in a day or two whether
He's a pathological liar, Jacob Rees-Mogg. As the leader of the Commons and as a very close friend of Boris Johnson's, he knows damn well what the concessions being offered to the European Union are. And at that point, Ridge should jump in and say, don't lie to me on national television on a Sunday morning, you blasphemer. You know damn well what are in the proposals. Is your boss effectively offering the European Union the same concessions as Theresa May did? The ones that you refuse to back. But Ridge doesn't do that, and this is poor.
I will have to eat my words or not. Time will tell.
So you are thinking that you might have to eat your words then?
Yeah, it's all very funny. She should hammer him there and say, hang on a second. You must think we're thick if you come on here and tell us that you don't know what the concessions are, but she doesn't.
So what's changed?
I don't know, but there's a line from Churchill saying he'd often had to eat his own words and he'd found it to be a very nourishing diet. And that is something that happens in politics. But it is ultimately a question of trust about the direction in which we are going. To go back to what we were discussing before we were interrupted by the gremlins, that I trust Boris Johnson to ensure that the relationship the UK has with the European Union is one where we are not a vassal state. And that is the point that we are leading towards in all these discussions, and I'm very keen that we should succeed in getting to.
Ridge says to him, is your change of heart down to your considerably better personal position in the party now?
No, certainly not. I've trusted Boris Johnson long before he asked me to be part of the government he formed. So, no, that's an irrelevance.
Well, it's not an irrelevance, you see. And what you've got in the Conservative Party now, today, is you've got a lot of very angry men and women, many of whom may have supported Boris Johnson, But maybe they've got a keen sense of fair play. And they're looking at MOG now, particularly MOG and the European Research Group, the hard Brexiteers. And they're saying, you're a shower of bastards. You wouldn't support Theresa May giving these concessions to the European Union because of your principle, because of your determination that the UK leaves the European Union properly. But now, because of your own personal position and your allegiance to Johnson, you're now prepared to offer those concessions to the European Union. You're a hypocrite. So look out for more explosions in the Conservative Party and more defections. We've seen the most recent Tory, Heidi Allen, is that her name, who went to the Liberal Democrats last week. Watch in the next few days how many more Conservatives, disgusted by MOG and his rank hypocrisy now, walk away from the party. Going to be very interesting. And of course, the ultimate result is the UK never leaves the European Union. So what about Labour then? Jeremy Corbyn was on the same programme. Will Labour support any deal or the deal that we think Boris Johnson is going to bring back to the Commons? What does Corbyn say?
Not that I've heard so far, although, as you say, it is unsubstantiated reports. I think the problem areas are of regulation and deregulation, which come from whatever trade arrangement there is with Europe and the wider world, but also perhaps very seriously is the Irish border issue. And if it creates a border down the Irish Sea rather than on the Irish border itself, I can see that being problems.
And with that in mind, how would you treat any Labour MP that did decide to back this deal if it does come back to the House of Commons?
This is very interesting in terms of Labour supporters. She asks them a good question. Some of your party are going to vote for it. People like Caroline Flint, for example, and others. They're going to vote for it. They're going to agree with Johnson. In other words, they'll be going against the party whip, which will be, obviously, Labour will whip its MPs to decline to vote against Johnson's deal. So what will they do to the ones who go with Johnson?
Well, I'll talk to them about it, but at the moment we're actually dealing with hypotheticals. So I'm not even sure the Prime Minister knows what the deal is going to be as yet. And so we'll obviously have a discussion about it within the Parliamentary Labour Party and with colleagues and decide how we go from here. But our principles are around the 5 pillars that I put forward in my letter to Theresa May some months ago, and what we stuck to, which is of a customs union with the European Union, a trade arrangement and protection of consumer, environmental and working rights, and crucially the support for the Irish peace process, which, remember, the Good Friday Agreement is not a bilateral agreement, it's an international agreement, it's a treaty.
Right, okay, that's nearly it for Brexit for today anyway. The time is coming up for 21 minutes past the hour. This is Sunday View with me, Richie Allen. Good morning, by the way, hope you're in fine fettle. Paul has been on Twitter to say he's nursing a hangover. Get in line, Paul, get in line. Finally, on Brexit for today, if Parliament doesn't agree and doesn't back or vote for Johnson's deal with the European Union, Johnson maintains that the UK will leave on October 31st. Anyway, what did Corbyn say?
He is under a legal obligation, if no deal has been agreed by Parliament, to write the letter, send the letter that has been passed by the EU number 2, as you call it, the Ben Act. If he doesn't do that, he's then in breach of the law.
So what would you do then?
We'd obviously take parliamentary action against him at that point.
And is that a vote of confidence?
Either by legislation or a vote of confidence.
And if, of course, he loses a confidence vote, then there would be 2 weeks for someone else to come forward, become Prime Minister, request that extension. Now, I know that you, as Leader of the Opposition, clearly feel that that should be you.
Of course. I'm the Leader of the Opposition. The whole precedent, all the British parliamentary precedents going back as long as you care to look, are that the first option is the Leader of the Opposition be invited to form an administration in order to deal with specific points, the specific points being to make sure we get a deal with the European Union.
But if you can't get the numbers, and I know you want to and you think you should, but if you can't get the numbers, could you consider backing someone else if it is the way to stop a no-deal exit?
I'm not going to hypotheticals. We will form an administration if this government collapses with the purpose of a deal and take this country forward to decide its own future through an election, and the people get a chance to decide their future through a a referendum. After all, a referendum made its decision in 2016. This would be a decision time between remain and hopefully some reforms, or leave under the terms that I've outlined.
Right, more from Jeremy Corbyn on a different subject in a few minutes' time. I'll be back with you in about 60 seconds. This is Sunday View.
Renowned healer Mark Bayersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Bayersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbayersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
Right, welcome back to the programme. This story about the diplomat who was involved in a crash which killed a young man called Harry Dunn runs and runs. It's in all the newspapers today, and the TV and radio shows are covering it, because the woman Anne Sekulis, who's married to an American diplomat, has spoken. She's broken cover to say she's devastated by the tragic accident. She's issued a statement through her lawyer. Harry Dunn's parents wanted her to come back to the UK to basically to face them and to speak to them about what happened in the crash that led to the death of their son, who was 19. Apparently she was driving on the wrong side of the road. So the Home Secretary is Priti Patel. She was on the Andrew Marr show this morning, that's on BBC One, and he asked her about the possibility that the woman will come back to the UK to face justice here, or at least to answer questions. Here's the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, or Priti Patel, however you pronounce it.
Well, Andrew, good morning. I think it's important to recognise that this is an incredibly tragic case, and the Foreign Secretary has been working with his American counterparts and been in touch with the US administration on this. And the fact of the matter is, right now, it very much seems that the lady in question wants to start cooperating with the discussions and obviously the investigations, and I think we should support that.
As Home Secretary, do you think she should be extradited here to face the music?
Well, I think, look, there are discussions taking place right now, and we need to ensure that justice is done, but obviously that cooperation with this investigation takes place. That is absolutely right. I mean, we owe that to the families, and obviously this is a terribly tragic case. The family need to have the assurance, obviously, that the investigation will be thorough, will take place, and that cooperation will also take place. And obviously that's what we are committed to working to achieve.
You seem to be suggesting, Home Secretary, that these investigations could take place in America without Anne Sekulis coming to the UK. Is that the case?
No, I've been very clear, as has the government and the Foreign Secretary, that we want her to cooperate. And I think it is right that actually at this stage now, because things have moved on in the last few hours, the last 24 hours, that the family are supported. Obviously, this is a tragic case, but that the cooperation takes place. So it is right that justice is served, that the investigation takes place, and the lady, Anna Sekulis, actually does cooperate with the investigation. That is the right thing to do.
Pretty weak stuff, I thought, from Patel. 26.5 minutes past the hour. Sunday View with me, Richie Allen. Do check out my friends Hayden Hewitt and Graham Booth, by the way, at triggerwarning.tv, or the YouTube channel Trigger Warning. Two terrific lads with very interesting points of view on a wide variety of subjects. Funny as well. And I've said it in the past, pithy. I love that word, pithy. Good lads, pissy as well. They can be pissy, those two idiots, I can tell you. Check them out, triggerwarning.tv. And I'm not sure about the meet-up. I don't know if there are any tickets available for that. But on Saturday, November 2nd, they're running a free speech event in Manchester, in Cheetham Hill in North Manchester. I've been invited to come along and participate in it. And there are tickets available for it. I'm not sure how many are left, but if you can get to it, it should be a lot of fun. and very interesting. Check that out, triggerwarning.tv. The Daily Mail runs a couple of very interesting stories on climate change rebels. Two very interesting stories. A very interesting story and an opinion piece by Peter Hitchens, which is very interesting. The first one is about how some of the activists are being paid up to £400 a week to be there. Yeah, the headline is, how Extinction Rebellion climate change zealots, including a baronet's Cambridge-educated granddaughter, are paid £400 a week to bring mayhem to our streets. This will properly piss off London commuters who have been inconvenienced, to say the least, by these, well, I don't know, woolly jumper wearing, I'm not going to go into all that again, sweaty, grubby, soap-shy little backstards. That's what they are, right? Yeah, I mean, if you have been inconvenienced, and if you live in central London, you've been inconvenienced by these Egypts. These proper Egypts who dance around like zombies, bringing the streets to an absolute shutdown. You know the way it's gone, right? So the Sunday Mail says, the Mail on Sunday says, protesters have received payments totalling more than £70,000 in 4 months. And the Mail alleges, the Mail on Sunday, that Extinction Rebellion is concerned that it might face a 6-figure tax bill if the money, which is given as expenses, is deemed to be payment for work done on its behalf. Okay? Now you might say, how could you pay 6 figures in tax on a £70,000 outlay? But apparently the £70,000 that the Mail has seen is only pie in the sky. It's a small amount of the overall figure that might have been paid out to some of these activists. So one Conservative MP has called on Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs to launch an immediate investigation into the movement's tax affairs. How interesting. How interesting. Activists have been paid more than £200,000 since the organisation came into being. The cost of the payments is increasing by at least £40,000 a month. Activists are targeting high net worth individuals for more funding and are spending £5,000 on camping tours of Europe and all the rest of it. It's crazy stuff. It's in the Mail on Sunday. And also in the Mail on Sunday is an article by Peter Hitchens, who generally writes opinion pieces in the Mail on Sunday every week. And he's writing about freedom of speech, and he's very concerned about it. And many senior journalists, many men and women who have been writing in our newspapers for 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, they are becoming increasingly worried by the Orwellian clampdown on your right of expression, my right of expression, and everybody's bloody right of expression. Your right to say what it is you think about things. Right. So Hitchens says one day it will be impossible to criticise the fanatics of Extinction Rebellion. Until then, I'll tell the truth about those irrational zealots. In fact, he said it will soon be impossible. In fact, I will not be at all surprised if in years to come I and others face prosecution for having dared to doubt them. I'm reading from Hitchens' article now. I'm speaking through the words of Peter Hitchens. This is Hitchens. Soon we will be sitting in an impoverished, dark country with a trashed economy, incessant power cuts, and dismal standard of living caused by their dogma. Putting people on trial for warning against this will be one way to keep warm and occupied. So while I still may, I'll say that this is one of the nastiest and stupidest outbreaks of intolerant, irrational zealotry since mankind emerged from the Dark Ages. I speak as a former intolerant zealot who grew out of it. It's very brave. I think we've all been intolerant zealots at one time or another. I certainly was. Very well put by Peter Hitchens. So he goes on. I know the fierce joy which comes from despising others only too well, and I fear it. Perhaps the most dispiriting version of it is to be seen in the painted, beatific faces of the red-robed mime artists who are to be found on so many of the demonstrations demanding this country commits economic suicide. Who can tell what's going on behind those self-satisfied ethereal expressions? But they give these marches a strong whiff of the age of inquisitions which I once thought we had escaped. I won't try to argue here on the rightness or wrongness of the warmist's theory about the causes of climate change. I know from long multiple experience that they respond to reasonable doubt with fury and defamatory cries of denier. I spend much of my life in debate and will take on any rational opponent, but there are some causes you can't reason with, and this is one of them. They prefer fury to logic. This is always the sign of someone who isn't sure of his own case and hates to hear his inner doubts spoken. That's just a little fraction of Peter Hitchens' piece in the Mail on Sunday today. I do urge you read it. dailymail.co.uk. It won't cost you anything. Speaking of this climate nonsense, Jeremy Corbyn wants us to be carbon net zero by 2030. He's a madman, is Corbyn. I think some of you on Twitter this morning have been talking about him being compromised. Yes, of course he is. He has reversed himself on all of the biggest issues of the day. One-time Eurosceptic in the extreme. Now he's in favour of maintaining a close relationship, customs union membership and trade agreement with the European Union. One time a climate change skeptic, serious skeptic. Now he talks about the need to be carbon net zero by 2030. Back to his interview with Sophie Ridge, he explains to Sophie Ridge why Labour thinks they can make carbon net zero by 2030.
It does mean a radical change in the way in which we generate electricity. It does mean
a radical change in the way in which we generate electricity. Wow.
Huge investment in green energy. It also means a huge number of jobs being created in green energy, and it also means significant changes to agriculture and industrial practices.
And it also means flights as well, doesn't it? If you're going to be serious about meeting that kind of emission, you're going to have to look at potentially restricting flights, taxing flights.
It also means measuring properly. At the moment, the government is often not including airlines and shipping, or aircraft and shipping, in the measurement of emissions, and we're not including the emissions created through imported goods that we have. But let's be serious about this. The world as a whole is suffering global warming. The world as a whole is destroying the natural world at a very rapid rate. We have to do everything not just to protect, but to enhance our biodiversity. We have to have trade policies that reflect that, and we have to have domestic policies in this country that reflect that. So
You are left wondering why at this point Sophie Ridge doesn't dive in and ask him, why is it then, historically, why did you disagree with the so-called science? Number one, and number two, isn't your brother, Piers, a scientist, a physicist, and a meteorologist? Isn't he telling people that this is a joke? So now, I'll leave that question hanging in the air, will I, or will I just answer it for you? Why isn't Sophie Ridge asking him about his scepticism? Why isn't Sophie Ridge asking him about his brother? Do you know what the answer is? Because the climate change agenda, which is being driven wholeheartedly by the UK's media, doesn't want anybody to know about Piers Corbyn, and certainly doesn't want anybody to know that the leader of the opposition was a one-time skeptic about the whole notion that man-made CO2 is irrevocably changing the climate, which it isn't. So this is sinister in the extreme. If you're a young reporter and you want to make a name for yourself, you couldn't wait to jump in on Jeremy Corbyn there, could you? When he starts talking about, let's listen back to what he says here again. It's very interesting, very important.
Let's be serious about this. The world as a whole is suffering global warming.
Oh, you just dive right in there, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Let's be serious about this. The world as a whole is suffering global warming. Now, any Mickey Mouse presenter who's only on the job 2 days is straight in there. Hang on a second now, Jezza. When did you come to that conclusion? What was the moment? When was your epiphany? Because you used to say it was a load of bollocks, Jezza. We know your brother, but of course the media doesn't want people to know this stuff. That's why, apart from appearing on talk radio, which isn't breaking any listenership records, let's be honest about it, nobody else in the country will speak with Piers Corbyn, except for the independent media. Sure, look, 'tis sinister in the extreme, but what are you going to do? Corbyn believes it now, or, as you were telling me on Twitter, he is compromised up the wazoo, but of course he is. That's how it works. That's how it always worked. That's how it always will work. Shall we move on? Let's move on. Let's move on. Talking about cancel culture, I was very interested last week. One of my listeners, who obviously doesn't listen to me very well, maybe it's my outrageous Irish accent. It took me years to learn this accent, years of drama school. I went to the Bonnie Langford School of Drama, don't you know? Before I got to the school, I used to speak like this, you see, but people don't want to listen to people on the radio sound like this. I came from very posh beginnings, so I did. I went to public school, so I had to learn how to talk like this, because you get further in life with an Irish accent, don't you know? But you know, this cancel culture and this guilt by association culture. The Richie Allen Show was mentioned in the national media again in the last few days, because Nick Collerstrom gave a speech somewhere at a church, and the church was informed that they shouldn't be hosting people like Nick Collerstrom because he's a hateful man. And the press ran the story, and they couldn't help but mention the Richie Allen Show, because they don't want people coming on the Richie Allen Show, because the Richie Allen Show has got an enormous listenership these days, and they don't want people coming on this programme. So it's all guilt by association. So my pals Hayden and Graham made a video about Rachel Corrie, and they take a point of view that Rachel Corrie's death was caused by Rachel Corrie, and they take a point of view that Rachel Corrie was a staunch campaigner against violence against the Palestinians, but that Rachel didn't give a shite about violence against the Israelis. Now, I don't share the opinions, you know, put out there by Hayden and Graham, but the notion that because I don't share those opinions, that I wouldn't invite those gentlemen to appear on my radio programme is frankly ludicrous and silly and childish and counterproductive. Did you not listen to me when I spoke with Alison Shablow? Whether I agree or disagree with Alison Shablow or not is irrelevant. I will give her a platform to speak, and I won't be told by anybody who I should like and who I should dislike. And I'm not going to dislike people because they have an opinion that's different to mine. I thought my listeners were a bit more grown up. You know? Why am I saying all that now? Because it's not as if you haven't said it before, Richie. Exactly. Well, there's another story in the newspaper. It's in the Mail on Sunday. Listen up. Furious mothers boycott Flora Oh, Jesus, Richie, say it again. Furious mothers boycott Flora margarine after it pulls its adverts from Mumsnet in transphobia row following complaints from a handful of transgender activists. This is fucking... Do you know, as much as it is infuriating, it's also scaring the bejesus out of me. And it's also scaring the bejesus out of people like Peter Hitchens, if you read his article in the Mail on Sunday today. Mumsnet is a website. Apparently, it's got legions and legions of users. And apparently it's very helpful for mothers. It's a forum where mums go on there and they talk about everything. Everything. Not just about mothering, but about politics, about the price of peas, about the price of a pint, about everything. Right? Right. And apparently it's very healthy because they don't like suppressing people on there, which we like, right? But a few trans activists, fucking idiots, right? They got onto Flora margarine and said, I can't believe you've got adverts on Mumsnet. They're a bunch of transphobes. And Flora margarine, instead of telling the trans bigots, trans activists to fuck off, right? Actually pulled their advertisements. Can you believe it? Yes, you can. The cancel culture is alive and well in the United Kingdom. The phone call should have went very, very simply. Hi, Flora. Hi, did you know that you're advertising on a website that hates trans people? No, we couldn't give a shite. Goodbye. That's how it goes, right? Right. But now it's going to back. It's basically going to backfire on Flora, because Mumsnet has millions of users, and they've decided, if that's the case, then let's stop buying their products. And Flora, of course, is part of a brand which manufactures many other products, and the parent company is proper shitting itself this morning, because there are 10 million users of Mumsnet, and they're not too happy that Flora Margarine and its parent company gave in to a few fucking snowflakes. Basically, what's been going on, feminists have been on Mumsnet, standing up for the rights of women to go to the swimming pool and get changed before they go for their swim, and not be confronted by a big hairy fucker in a wig with balls popping out of his fucking knickers. That's all they want. It's not much to ask. You know? It's not much to ask that you get changed into your little bikini or your little costume and you're not looking at dangly bits in the cubicle next to you. That's all they're asking for. Or that if they have been battered to bejesus by their husband and they're in a shelter, God love them, trying to get their lives back together, that some fucking 6'7" dickhead with 3 days growth and a wig is not in there as well. Safe spaces, not a lot to ask for. We're not talking about psychological safe spaces like they have in universities now for students who can't handle the fucking sight of blood in a presentation. No, we're talking about physical safe spaces. That's all they want. So they're on Mumsnet talking about that. A couple of trans idiots ring up Flora, and Flora says, okay, we'll pull the ad. Come on. They'll pay for it now. They'll pay for it, I tells you. And they'll pay for it good. Mental, isn't it crazy to be having this conversation? Good morning, John Parsons, part of the Irish community in Salford. Come on the mum, says John. 10 million users. Mum said, boycott the bejesus out of them. Boycott the bejesus out of them. That's how you deal with it. Unbelievable, huh? Unbelievable. Going to finish with this now. I know there's 16 minutes in the show, but there's plenty to talk about. This is Sunday View, by the way. Let me give you a quick heads up. Tomorrow, being Monday, I should have done the phone-in program on Thursday, but we had pressing matters to discuss with Deborah Tavares and Dr. Chris Busby on Thursday. So we're going to have a phone-in tomorrow for 90 minutes from 5:30. I'll have a news roundup at 5. And at 5:30, I'll open the phones. Priority given to first-time callers. Listen up. I'm not saying I won't take your call, but I'm giving priority to first-time callers, okay? So the phone-in show will be tomorrow. One very disturbing story, in the Mail on Sunday. This is horrific, this. And I'm reading this morning as I'm getting over my horrendous hangover. Having been at the game yesterday and been at the bingo last night. I was at bingo. I'm reading this morning. I can't believe my eyes. The Daily Mail has got the Sunday Mail, the Mail on Sunday, has got a picture of a lovely looking young woman, 23 years of age, called Kelly. And she's in Belgium, is Kelly, in a city called Leuven. Leuven. I'm presuming it's Leuven or Leuven. Let's say Leuven. Future Mrs. Allen will know, but she's not here. She's 23, lovely looking woman, big, when she smiles in one of the pictures, big smile. She's going to a euthanasia clinic, and there's nothing physically wrong with her. She's plagued by mental health problems and by crippling shyness, and is going to die. And this is no joke. And it's a very well written piece in the Mail on Sunday by a very good writer who describes meeting this lovely young woman and the horror experienced by the journalist, realising that I'm sitting down with a woman who wants to take her own life and is going to be allowed to do so. And young Kelly goes on to describe the feelings that she lives with every day of the week and how it's necessary to commit suicide. And she says it's not going to hurt. I'll be going to sleep and it'll be the first time in my life it'll be quick. Belgium is one of 3 countries in the European Union which allows people to commit suicide for psychological reasons. Belgium doesn't make any distinction between physical and mental pain. And this absolutely spoke to... I was very emotional reading this morning. Looking at this young woman and realising that the state is going to be complicit in murdering her. And I think of the people I've met in the last few years on this programme, people like Jonathan Ryle, people like Neil Sanders, people like Mark Bajerski, people like Mike on the Isle of Wight. I know that, I must make a very big distinction. Jonathan and Neil are hypnotherapists. Mark is a healer. Mike Lambert on the Isle of Wight is a healer. I'm convinced that Jonathan Ryle and Neil Sanders could work with that young woman and could help her to overcome the problems that she has. But Belgium is going to allow her take her own life. This is the definition of Agenda 20, Agenda 30. And I swear to you, no fear porn will you ever get on the Richie Allen Show. This is coming to a fucking country near you soon. I'm telling you. And it won't be necessarily exclusively for people with psychological pain. It'll be for senior citizens who are lonely. Because Mr. Smith died, or Mrs. Smith died, and Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith can't go on anymore. No problem. We have a pill for you. Coming to a city near you. That is scarier than anything that fucking John Landis or Wes Craven or Dario Argento could ever come up with. A beautiful looking, physically healthy young woman is going to be given an injection. Well, she's not. She's going to be given a cup with pills to take in a clinical Snow White fucking facility with the smell of antiseptic in the air. And there's nothing wrong with her. It is mad. I'm going to finish with this. Let me finish with this. This is bizarre. Sunday View. You know, I talk to you all the time about how the media is evolving and how television news programs are increasingly being used to get you and me to emote in a way that they, with a capital T, would want us to emote, to get us to feel things, to get us to think things, to program us in certain ways that maybe we would never have considered before. I love the word pathos. You can look up the definition of pathos using any search engine, but pathos, I think of pathos as, if we look at it in the context of the media, let's look at it in the context of the media. In the media, pathos is broadcasting in a way such as to convince the audience of a certain point of view. So you've got a certain point of view as a broadcaster, and you want your audience to think as you do, and you convince them using an argument that draws an emotional response from the audience. That's the definition of pathos. So I want to convince you to think and feel a certain way. And I'm going to do that by invoking in you an emotional response. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it isn't very subtle, but it transforms the way you think over time. So we're being told all the time by the national media that we're not very good, that we're not nice, on the one hand, that we're not nice to minorities, that we're not nice to vulnerable groups, that we're just not decent people. That's a collective message pushed on you and me by the media. At the same time, coincidentally, the media is also trying to convince you and me that we have mental health problems. It doesn't fucking stop, does it? Morning, noon and night. You will have Sky News presenters, as I demonstrated last week, saying, now it seems like we're always talking about mental health. That's because we are. You have a mental health problem. Listen to Prince Harry. Listen to Ed Sheeran. The fucking plagiarist, Ed Sheeran, who doesn't mind robbing the music and the chord patterns of other musicians, doesn't mind doing it because he'll make so much money anyway that the fines are worth it. Ginger moron, useless, Ed Sheeran, right? They'll tell you you've got mental health problems. And you're being told all the time that you're not considerate to vulnerable groups. Where are you going with this, Richie? I was talking to Jean Ann about this the other day, yesterday in fact. There I was on Friday morning in Buell Hill Park in Salford with the dog. With dog on park. With dog on park. And I was listening to Radio 5 Live. And they were previewing a segment that was coming up later on the programme. And I couldn't. I couldn't believe my shell-like. Have a listen to this. This is mad stuff, I tell you.
Chris Silverwood, in one of his first interviews on the programme this morning, this Friendly Friday. Your questions for him, please. 85058.
We're also going to be speaking to Adam Selvey. He's 22. He has cerebral palsy and he says he loves to run. He's got a major run coming up for him, a major landmark run, but he only runs at night because he's terrified by the thought of people staring at him and making fun, which is really, really sad. He's going to be joining us live. Let us know if that resonates with you as well and whether you or a member of your family has adapted your exercise regime because you're worried about that kind of judgment. Text us 85058 at BBC 5 Live.
We were talking about Leo.
Yeah. National News Network, national programme, talking about Brexit, and then bizarrely, we're going to talk to a 22-year-old lad with cerebral palsy, and he doesn't want to go out running during the day because he's worried about what people say or think about or of him, and we'll be talking to him. Do you understand where this is going? And then they do the interview with the guy.
Breakfast, Nikki Campbell and Claire McDonald. Now, here's a question. Do you ever feel self-conscious when you are exercising? Many of us...
No, I couldn't give a fuck, to be honest.
Too many of us have been there. Our next guest feels so self-conscious, he only runs at night to avoid stares from strangers. Let's talk to Adam Selvey. Morning, Adam.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have...
Yes, you are listening to a national radio network programme, talking to a man who is nervous about going running in the daytime. You're actually listening to this. I haven't stitched this together. This is genuine on Friday morning. And there's a very deep and profound reason why you're hearing this type of stuff all the time.
To have you on the programme. Listen, tell us the story then. Why do you run at night?
Why do you run at night, Adam? Fuck, I can't wait.
Yeah, so...
Go on.
I have right-sided hemiplegic cerebral palsy.
Right-sided hemiplegic cerebral palsy, okay.
I suffered damage to my brain at birth, which significantly affects motor function and muscle movement in the right side of my body.
Go on.
As a result of that, I mean, first of all, physically, you know, things are difficult for me. I used one hand to live. I eat with one hand, dress with one hand, etc.
Yeah, we know what etc. means. You jerk off with one hand, we know.
But I've always said that the most debilitating thing about my disability is the mental factor. So feeling self-conscious in my skin, in my body.
Jesus Christ.
Feeling that everyone around me is sort of out to get me and things.
Feeling that everyone around me is out to get me?
Weird. And so, I mean, I love running, I love exercising, but I'm paranoid that people will look at me and make fun of me and stuff.
Yeah. You're saying, so what, right? And if you're driving down the M1 on Friday morning listening to that, you're actually shaking your head going, what the fuck am I listening to? What is this? What's this about? Some bloke, some random bloke called Adam, some random fella from fucking anywhere, he could be from anywhere, has got right-sided hemiplegic cerebral palsy. He's only got the use of one hand, but he can still jerk off. Thank God. And he's scared of going out running in the daytime because he thinks people are out to get him. Are we really listening to this? But this is sinister. There's a reason for this.
And make fun of me and stuff.
And as you say, this is something that happened from birth. So when you were a lot younger, when you were a child, I know you're one of triplets, aren't you? So you have two able-bodied, is it brothers?
If I was producing Billy McCarthy, rest in peace, one of Ireland's greatest ever radio presenters, and I did produce him, and I put that in front of him, he'd have fucking fired me. He'd have said, Richie, get your coat and fuck off. If I'd have said to him, you're interviewing some bloke called Adam, who can't move down his right-hand side and he's scared of running in the daytime, he'd have taught me to fucking sling my hook. Sorry for swearing. This drives me mad, this.
Yeah, brother and sister.
Brother and a sister. So when you were younger, did you have this self-consciousness, or did it creep in as you grew older?
No, that's the amazing thing. As a kid, it never really registered with me at all. I mean, obviously...
What is this?
I knew I had CP. But, as you say, I'm a triplet, so I live quite a sort of active lifestyle, very busy. And, it always used to confuse me when sort of adults would pull me to one side and say, are you sure you want to climb that tree? Are you sure you want to go on that hike and stuff? It never really registered with me. I was...
National radio station, breakfast, the biggest programme of the day. And you're listening to some chap called Adam, who a bit nervous about going out running.
Quite odd. That all kind of kicked in the self-consciousness when I was sort of 13, 14, as all people do really, but sort of adding on to the natural feelings of anxiety and stuff, adding on the disability dimension is really quite toxic, and I internalized all of those preconceptions that the adults had.
That's terrible.
I internalised all those preconceptions that the adults had. Jesus.
Terrible. So did that mean you stopped exercising?
Yeah. And I was a really active guy as a kid. So it was really quite sad, to be honest with you. Now I look back, at the time I thought it was natural, this is what I don't want to run anymore. But yeah, it was really sad. Really sad.
And?
You are, though, doing a half marathon on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So you came back to exercise, but yeah. Why did you come up with the idea of running at night? You were still so self-conscious that you couldn't do it in the daytime, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good thing, obviously, that I'm having to do this, and I shouldn't have to feel like I have to. And I know
what I shouldn't have to feel like I have to go running in the nighttime.
That I'm having to do this, and I shouldn't have to feel like I have to. And I know that it's not. I know that it's not. I know that people aren't out to get me. I know that's not the case.
So what the fuck are you doing on the radio then?
But I'm just so kind of scared of that judgment, I suppose.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Have you ever had anybody shout anything out, say anything to you as you've been running along?
Not when I've been training. No, not.
No, nobody's ever shouted at him.
Not at all. As a teenager, I remember playing tennis actually, and some boys who I considered friends and classmates, which is really kind of the.
I won't spare you. I won't subject you to any more of that. That was national BBC Radio 5 live breakfast on Friday morning. What's going on there? Why are you hearing increasingly more and more and more and more of these pathos designed or driven stories? Why so many of these kind of faux human interest stories across the national media all the time, to invoke emotions in you subliminally, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly. And it's all about creating a kind of a reality where everybody, every human being, you, your wife, your husband, your children, your neighbours, that you are all vulnerable and victims and potentially susceptible to offence and to hurt, and we all have to be much more aware of that as we go about our daily lives. We have to increasingly self-censor ourselves, obviously self-censor ourselves, but also censor others. We have to always be on the lookout forever. You used to have neighbourhood watch, where you're looking out for the property and the the safety of your neighbours and your friends. Now you have to always be on the lookout for vulnerable groups and minority groups that you must be very careful about. Not only must you be very careful about what you say or what you do around people, but you have to watch and mind that others are careful about what they do and what they say around people. This is a mind control exercise that the UK media is fully complicit in. You are very, 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 very bad. You don't communicate very, very well. You have to shift your whole mindset. The way you go about your daily business, the way you speak, the way you talk, and the way you think has got to change for people like Adam, who won't go out in the daytime to run because he feels that people are out to get him. It doesn't matter, as he pointed out, that people are not out to get him. If he feels it is so, there is a problem, therefore society has got to do something about it. Do you understand why I subjected you to that? This is beyond fucking Silent Green. This is madness where we're going. Absolutely insane. At no point did the interviewer do what we would have done years ago. Say, Adam, what the fuck is your point, man? What's your point then? Get over it. What are you doing on my programme? If I was the presenter, what the fuck is this? We've got things to talk about. What are you doing here? What do you want people to do, Adam? Do you want to go running and do you want everybody on the street to turn their back to you so you don't have to see their eyes? Because you feel that they're looking at you because you're different. You are fucking different. You're paralysed down one half of your body and you've only got one hand. The fuck? What do you want? Do you see where it's going and why they're doing this increasingly? Media watch, huh? It's never dull. Listen, that was Sunday View. Thanks so much. I don't know if Graham is still going on. I love watching Graham. It's not that I don't watch him, but obviously when I come off the programme, the first thing I do is I put it on air. I've got things to do, so I don't see Graham when he's live. But if he is doing a show on Trigger Warning on YouTube, do check it out. He might have already started. That's Graham Booth. I'll speak to you again Monday. That's tomorrow Monday at 5 o'clock. Well, I'll speak to you tomorrow morning at 9:30 for the paper review on YouTube. It'll be the radio show tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but it will be the phone in. And I've got some brilliant guests lined up for the week, this coming week as well. That was Sunday View, a little bit over the time, but who cares, eh? Who cares? Enjoy the rest of your day. Look after yourselves and one another. I've been Richie Allen, and I've enjoyed this episode of Sunday View. See you tomorrow, by the way. Bye.